any observations people want to make. So whatever you've got, I'll do the best I can. Yes. I'm sorry? Yes, what about it? Oh, well, we're going to meet with the deans. The deans are, the diocese is divided into 7 regions called deaneries. For each deanery, there's a priest who represents it. So I'm meeting with all of them and the 2 auxiliary bishops on Wednesday, because there may be more state and county guidance on Tuesday. Tuesday's their date to come out with stuff. But anyway, we're going to meet and go out and come up with what our policy is going to be. I believe we'll get rid of the temperatures. Okay. I don't want to commit to too much on that because I don't want to preempt the discussion, but I will be surprised if we don't eliminate, because certain things are just not going to be necessary anymore.
I have a microphone that I'll bring to anybody who has a question. If you just put your hand up.
Bishop, is this new model, is it temporary or permanent?
I'm sorry?
Is the new model going to be temporary or permanent?
I'd say neither in this way. I want to explain it. I asked Jane and Father Don to commit to 3 years to this, and then we will evaluate it as it goes along. And so it's 3 years. It may be longer than that. We'll assess it and involve the parish in that at that time. So, and Jane may really want to retire at some point too. So. Oh, actually, he won't be your pastor, okay? That I got to be clear on. There is this is complicated, but the way the structure will be is the director of parish life is Jane. She makes all the decisions, okay? She's like the pastor in terms of decision making and running things. The priest, Father Don, is here to offer priestly service, spiritual care, sacramental, all those things. But he's not the decision maker, and he is not the pastor. He doesn't direct Jane what to do. And she won't really be directing him what to do either. He's carrying out his priestly roles. But they'll collaborate on things. But there is technically in church law, you can't leave a parish without a pastor. So I've named the Vicar General, Father Pham, the technical pastor, because he has to assign certain, when there are weddings that are done by outside priests, you need to have faculties and so forth. So he's what's called the canonical pastor, but he will have basically no role here other than those technical things. Jane is the decision maker. Father Don is the priestly presence in the sacramental life and the spiritual care of the people that is true priestly care. So is that helpful in answering? Yes. I'm not hearing, I didn't hear. Oh, I don't want to overuse that analogy too much. I probably shouldn't have used it, but they will certainly be collaborating. Yeah, that's why I wanted to make sure as they got together and talked things through that it was that it made sense. The chemistry was there in a sense, and I thought it would be, and I think it is. So yes, they'll be collaborating all the time on things. It exists in a slightly different form. You know Immaculate Conception Parish, which is in Old Town, okay? It exists there. It's slightly different in that the Franciscans, there's a history to it. That was originally a Franciscan parish many, many years ago in the last century. Bishop Buddy didn't like religious orders, so he threw them out. And it was always a sore point with them. And the Franciscans have moved back down more fully into the diocese. They're running the School of Theology now and educating our seminarians. So they were looking for a place to have their faculty members, 4 faculty members, priests, Franciscan priests. And I thought to myself, well, wouldn't it be great to give them that parish to staff? So I phoned the provincial, and he said, well, we'd be happy to do the priestly work there and staff it. That says, but we can't take over the parish administratively and all that, because I'm just withdrawing Franciscans for 2 other parishes in the province, and there's no way I can explain to them why we're taking a new one here. So then we went to this same model, except it's a deacon who is the director of parish life there. So he does these same duties that Jane will do, and then the 4 Franciscans that are there carry out the spiritual care and the sacramental life. So that's been going okay. It's a different kind of parish, and it's been hit hard by COVID, but it seems to have been going well. Yes. Yes, that's why when we were going to move forward with it, we had a joint meeting, it was Zoom, of course, with Father Ron, with Jane, with Father Don, and the parish council and the finance council. And we discussed all these things and had a period of questions before we did the final moving forward on it. But yes, now of course, that should be true in any parish, I have to say, and I regret that in some places it's not effectively used. But yes, it has to be here, sure. Oh, yes.
When someone requests a certificate of sacrament, a copy of baptism, and you note the officiant, and then underneath the pastor normally signs, who will sign that?
Well, we hadn't anticipated that. Of course, these things, I should ask them what they do at Immaculate Conception.
And then also, like certain occasions, there's a certificate of liability that's made out to the pastor.
Well, that is a canonical thing. I mean, that's an administrative thing. Jane will sign that.
Okay.
The priest is not doing any administrative actions. It's different on the sacramental certificates, because likely he's going to be the one performing the sacrament.
Well, the officiant's noted, but then if they ask for a copy of it, normally the pastor would sign that, saying that that's true and correct in the record book.
But the officiant can sign. Let's assume Father Don.
On the original.
Father
on the original.
Don did it.
Yeah.
Okay. No, but he's going to be here. He's going to be living here.
Right.
So that he'll just sign it in the book. I mean, he can sign if people need copies, he can sign it just like in any other parish where a pastor would sign it.
So he'll sign, like if it was a baptism that Father Jerry did years ago, they want a copy, he's noted as the officiant, and then the person to sign it at the bottom would be?
I think it could be either one, Frank. I mean, there's no canonical requirement on this. Obviously, the book, well, because I will confess, are you involved in the documentation?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I thought you might be. Well, I will reveal this, what you already know. I will reveal, we're often not I was a pastor for 16 years in the same parish, and generally I did not sign the book, all right? Our secretary signed the book for everybody, so it's not exactly forging. I have to tell you one embarrassing story. When I was a newly ordained priest, I was a deacon, and I was serving in this parish, and then I was ordained a priest in April. So I still stayed in the same parish till July when I was reassigned. So at that parish, I had the Spanish Mass, because I was the only one who spoke Spanish, which was Saturday nights. So, and there were some afternoon baptisms on Saturday. Or I'm sorry, it was Sunday night, so I had some afternoon baptisms. So I do my baptism. I can remember I'm new to all this. So there was the certificate was filled out by the secretary. I brought it down, I signed it, I gave it to the family, and they went home. And I was taught, always you keep the paper and then you go sign the book. We used to have to enter everything, see, from the information we have. We didn't enter it in the book before the sacrament occurred, because maybe something would come, it wouldn't occur. So I have all that with me, and I get a sick call. So I had to go up, and a man was dying. So I go up there and deal with that, and he did die. And then I rushed back for the 5 o'clock Mass. And now I had already given the original certificate to the family, and they had left, So then the next day, the secretary says to me, well, where's the record? Did you do the baptism? I said, yes. And I realized I had lost all the documents. We didn't have anything. I remembered the name, but we didn't have anything. So I just filled in the book, because the real secretary wasn't there. This was a substitute that was asking me. So I fill in the thing, and I just put the name, and I remember the godparents, but I didn't have addresses or anything. So then I put in, they have a thing at the end in the book that's called notanda. It's notes, sometimes you make a note about the ceremony. So I put papers lost in fire. And I figured, they're not going to come back for 6 years till the child gets first communion or enters school. So I can, they won't remember this. So anyway, but that family came back and wanted a second certificate the week later. And so then the real secretary calls me and goes, what's this about a fire? So I had to explain the whole thing. But anyway, so yes, I think we will be able to cover it. I've never done that again, I will say. Anybody have anything else they want to bring up?
How long will he actually be with us since he's already of retirement age? Oh, I'm loud enough.
Right. How long, what? Well, I asked for a commitment of 3 years. He wanted to go longer than 3 years. So the 3 years I put in more for Jane as an off route if she chooses to do that at that point. But he's going to move out here. He'll be living here, and he's not working full-time, because remember, he's not doing any administrative, all that, so it's a half-time thing, but he's only doing the priestly work, but he is doing all of that. So, but he intends to stay longer, and as you know, we have many priests who are functioning after 75. It's a big problem in the diocese. I don't know what the right policy is. Here, we don't allow them to go past 75 as a pastor. They can't have it. They can be a full-time in a priestly work if they want to, but they can't be a pastor or in any administrative role past 75. And we've gone back and forth on that. 2 years ago, we looked at a very clearly what to do, because that year in particular, there was one very accomplished, robust police who wanted to stay where he was, and often we have that. So, but we talked it over. The drawback to letting guys go over 75 is this. Then you've got to monitor them every year, and at a certain point, you've got to say, at some age, and some people, it's in their 80s. Some guys can go to 80 or 85, and sometimes 85. But then each year the bishop's making a judgment call on the guy's competence, and it becomes very contentious. So this way, we have it at 75 as the rule. You cannot be a pastor. So for example, he could not stay on where he is as pastor. And the reason is we want them out of the administration. But we have a number of guys who help out hugely in the diocese after the age of 75, and they're providing wonderful service. So, Father Don, you'll see him when you meet him, or meet him when you see him. But he is a very, very pastoral man who's been very well liked in his parishes, and he is. He has the capability to do just this and to do it well. So. Yes.
Thank you. So just to clarify, Father Don, I'm assuming he'll have an office here.
Yes.
He'll have hours that if if a parishioner needs to contact him
Yes.
directly for a pastoral need, he will be available.
Yes.
So.
Yes. He will do all of the priestly, spiritual, and sacramental work of the parish, okay? Now, I say it that way in that in all these parishes, lay people are doing a lot of spiritual work too, but that which normally falls to the priest and has fallen to the priest, which is truly spiritual and sacramental, and sometimes that means spiritual counseling and all these different things. Yes, he is. That's why he's moving out here. He will be living here, okay? And then yes, he will have an office here.
Thank you.
So it's not a full-time commitment, but it's a whole commitment. It's to whatever the priestly, sacramental, spiritual service is needed here, he will be doing. Except when he's on vacation, say, or something.
At the Zoom meeting we had with the Parish Council and the Finance Council, you had mentioned that Father Don wanted to go on vacation. So when will he actually arrive in the Church of St. Luke? August 1st? Okay, thank you.
I'm going to continue saying the masses through.
July.
I will continue saying the masses through July, and the parish is going to pay me for that. Is that cool? I won't be here during the week.
Okay. Yes.
One of Father Ron's primary duties that we see displayed involves cheerleading for fundraising.
Right.
And he does a good job of that, by the way. And this involves both the weekly collections and that sort of thing, and special projects like the janitorial
Sure.
solar collectors that we have out here. How do we see that function evolving in this new situation? Would we expect Jane to come over on Sundays and encourage?
Quite likely. But what you mentioned before about the role of the parish council and finance council being enhanced, that's one place where it should be enhanced in this model, I think. And many parishes do a lot of that. So I think at some points, yeah, Jane will have to do it. But I think it's a moment in which, in many parishes, there are very let's say, effective arm twisters in the laity who get up and give very good talks from time to time at the crucial moments of putting, asking people to participate. So I think that will evolve here. But the responsibility for it falls on Jane. So, sure. Yes? No. I mean, I don't want to prejudge what, he will have input on that. When we discussed that, though, that was not a problem from his end, okay? I mean, it wasn't a personal problem from his end. So I don't, he's not coming in with some agenda on doing that. And so, now how many days a week do you have Mass now? Are there 2 days you don't have it, or 2 days you don't have? Have you talked more with him, Jane or Ron?
No, I don't know what days he takes off. He only takes 1 day a week off. Monday. So there's a possibility that he might want to do more daily masses than I do. But don't expect that he's going to make big changes.
Yeah, no. His needs don't require changes for what the current situation is, okay? And we did discuss that, he and I had discussed that.
In my conversation with Father Don, he said, the only thing I want to contribute is to enhance what is already being done.
Oh yeah, he's not coming in with the notion of changing things. And just remember, he's not the decision maker. He's there to have the true priestly role minus decision making, okay? But to be the minister that's there for people to celebrate the sacraments and to provide priestly spiritual care. That's the whole of his role. That's all he'll be concentrating on. But it's what he loves best and what he does best. So it's a happy coincidence of, many priests do not like doing the administrative part. It's not, I was trained for it on one level, but most priests have not been trained for it. And so many of them find it enormously difficult. So that's where this sort of a model emerged from, frankly. But for us, it particularly allows us to use, in a robust way, priests who, for one reason or another, some just don't want to be pastors, but they would be happy to be, and they're associate pastors now, but they would be very happy to be in this model, the priestly presence in a parish.
It seems to me just in my opinion, a lot of similarities between what you're talking about and the military chaplainship, and how military chaplains do basically the pastoral work, while most of the administrative for any chapels and things like that are taken care of by the command. Have you looked at it that way too? Or?
Yes. The one difference is, of course, that there is, in the chapel system, it's not a Catholic who's running that other part of it, the administrative part of it. We got into trouble this year. I don't know if you saw it. It was in the newspapers for a while. The Navy, in an effort to cut funding and save some money, they had what looked like a good idea. I could understand why they made this decision, but it turned out to be a disaster. Because there aren't enough Catholic priests, we only have it in the whole country, something like maybe 35 priests who are naval chaplains. I mean, it's really that small. It used to be hundreds, and so it's a real problem. So one of the ways of handling it is they have priests who are part-time chaplains on a contract basis, who are not part of the military archdiocese who full-time serve, but they do it for a period of years or part-time or something, or some retired guys do it. So a large percentage of the Catholic ministries in the Navy, the Army, and so forth are by contract and part-time. Well, they decided at a high level in Washington that they were going to cut out all the contract people, not realizing at that level that means cutting out the majority of the Catholic sacramental presence. It just didn't dawn on them because you wouldn't know that unless you know a bit about it. So then there's this huge controversy, and it was centered here. They had approved it here in this sector. So one day I got a call from the chief of naval operations, very apologetic. He was Catholic at the time, going on. He was a convert, saying how he didn't know, and he was so upset that this happened and everything. So the benefit we have in this model is it's not an outsider running the chapel. It's Jane, who's a member of the community.
Bishop, may I answer that?
Yes.
Two things, I guess. One thing, when they cut out the part-time chaplains, those guys all lost their rights, privileges at the golf courses. Secondly, Father Don doesn't like the word chaplain being used to describe what we will be doing here, primarily because he wants to be part of the parish. He wants to be the parish priest.
And this is where this model differs from most places in the country where it's utilized. In most places in the country, there is a director of parish life. Largely in the Midwest, it's in the rural areas where the parishes are small. And so there's a director of parish life for the parish, but the priest comes in like as a circuit rider on Sunday. He'll do 1 or 2 services, then he goes on the same weekend to another parish and maybe to a third parish. So there's not a presence there in the same way. So I didn't want to go in that model to having a priest who moves around. So that's why the model, as it will be in San Francisco, is a priestly presence that's stable. I was at a meeting nationally on this question for all the directors of parish life. Many of them are nuns, and some of them are running 2 and 3 parishes. It's really hard in these rural areas, and then you have to try to get the right type of priest. Of course, I was having lunch with about 5 of them, and I was at that time pastor of a parish. I was vicar general too, but I was pastor of a parish. And I had 5 priests living in the house. So then they were talking, they said, "We know you're a pastor." They said, "Do you have anyone else with you?" I said, "Well, yes, I do." And they said, "More than one?" I said, "Yeah." They said, "How many?" I said, 5. And for the whole rest of the lunch, they were just glaring at me. They said, "Can't we share this around, But no, we can't. Or we don't. So that's a difference from the model as it is in most of the country. Our model here in San Diego will not be priests who just come in and then move on. There'll be priests who are part of the community. Okay. Oh, yes.
Thank you. I'm a member of the parish council, and I'm absolutely thrilled that Jane has been appointed to this position. I know that, no one could do this job better than she can. But at the same time, I am concerned that is she going to have the authority, the ability to maybe, hire some assistance if she needs? This is a huge job. And, although we have some wonderful volunteers, and our parish volunteers can only do so much, and I'm just concerned about Jane not being overwhelmed with all of this responsibility.
Jane she has the same authority within the parish that a pastor would have, with the exception of she can't fire Father Don, okay? Because that's a different, I appoint Father Don, I appoint Jane. But all decision-making in the parish will be Jane, and I believe she will be collaborating closely with Father Don. But, so I can't tell you what the right mixture is, and that probably will evolve over time, of hiring and staff and the constellation of people here that are necessary. But I can tell you, it's the same. It resides now in Jane, in this model. Okay.
And I'm sorry, I just have one more question.
Sure.
I'm assuming, well, I'm not on the finance committee, so I have no idea our finances. But with the addition of a new salary, are we going to get any substance from you? I mean,
No.
will we be able to afford it?
No.
I don't
When
know.
I told you earlier, Father Ron came in with the model 2 years ago, the reason I said no was they wanted a subsidy from the diocese for it. And we couldn't do that. Now, it seems to make sense, as I understand it, but Father Ron has looked at this question, and Jane has looked at this question, and as they're figuring out the constellation of staffing, it seems to make sense. I don't know if you want to say anything more about that.
Yes, we have thought of that, and our primary concern is that Jane can do the job, and the major assistance that she will need would be financial records and that type of thing. And so we will be hiring she will be hiring a bookkeeper to assist. And it would be a bookkeeper that has more extensive duties than most bookkeepers. It would be a full-time bookkeeper, full charge bookkeeper, keeper plus. The problem is we don't pay that much. So if any of you want the job and you're willing to take low salary, let me know. And we believe that it can be done with that. That takes the major stress off of her. And she's done, remember, she took over when I was on sabbatical. And you probably also remember there's certain areas where I think she did a better job than I've done. So she's very, very capable. But I appreciate the concern.
I believe Jane is very qualified. I just was wondering about the finances of being able to add another salary.
Oh, you want to know if we can pay for it?
Yeah, can we afford another, that, thank you.
Figured out how to do that.
Good.
It's coming out of your pocket. No, truly, we do have enough money to do this, and we have enough money to hire her more assistants. The only problem is that money's in your pockets.
Well, now wait a minute. You showed me in the budget where it balances. It balances already, but of course, more is always better. So, but this will work given the current income of the parish. Yes.
Is Jim Crockett still employed by the parish?
Until June 30th. Jim does not have qualifications for that bookkeeper job.
Okay. Anything else? We'll pray, and I'll look forward when you meet Father Don. Yes. Yes. Not as the dominant model, but as one that will work in certain places. It's particularly helpful in the place where there's already a lay leader in the community who can take on the role, see. It's harder to do when you're bringing in somebody in Jane's role who's from outside totally. It's harder to get it. I mean, we do have it going on at, as I mentioned, Immaculate Conception, but the deacon there, Bob, is a parishioner there. He and his wife have been parishioners there. So again, it was an easy fit. So I don't imagine this will be a lot of parishes, but there will be more of them, yes. And it's not done precisely in lieu of having a priest. I want to stress that. These other dioceses in the Midwest and so forth, they do it because they don't have enough priests. This isn't exactly that. This is doing it for two reasons. One is to empower lay leadership in the diocese in a particular way. And the second is we have good priests who, for one reason, in this case, Father Don's, he's 75. But he has a lot of good years left in there. I don't mean 10 good years, but I mean he has a number of good years. You will find him a very pastoral man. He's a quiet man. He has a dry sense of humor. He's been a wonderful pastor where he has been before, and he will bring those same skills and love of the people here. So it's so we can utilize those priests. And again, there are other priests who do not want to be pastors or simply don't have the capacity. So we can utilize their pastoral skill in this model without putting them in positions which they're not up to or they can't or they don't want to do. So.
I have questions for Father Ron. Since Jim Crockett was business manager, is his job being absorbed by Jane since he can't do the other position?
Yes, she's responsible for all of the things he was responsible for, but she will need help in accomplishing that. So she's, from a managerial point of view, responsible, but there will be an employee that actually does the work.
So then help with Carmen's question, to help them with Carmen's question, then Jim's salary would go for this new position that she needs to hire.
Yes.
Okay.
With the, I think it's 100 parishes in our diocese, do they all have their own priest, or are we at the point that we're sharing priest? I know there's a shortage.
They're not at the point where they all have their own priest, okay? Now, it's not necessarily, we have enough priests. Our challenge is to have enough priests who want to be and can be effective pastors. That's the challenge we have. Now, there's another type of challenge out in the valley, to respond directly to your question. In the valley, there are two sets of parishes where the parishes have come together with a common pastor. One is in El Centro. So both parishes in El Centro now have a common pastor, common staff, all that. So they're effective. They weren't collapsed in terms of their parish identity, but they're collapsed on every other basis in functions of one. In Brawley, there were 4 parishes, and they have a unified pastor. So, and then down at St. Jude's, you know where St. Jude's is here in San Diego? St. Jude's and St. Anthony's. The pastor there is pastor of both parishes. So there have been some combinations like that. So not every parish has a distinctive pastor. But those models seem to be working okay, actually pretty well.
Good morning, Bishop.
Good morning.
With all the evolution that our church is going through, do you foresee in the fairly near future that women will be allowed to become deacons? We've been blessed here at St. Luke's with our deacons.
On deacons, I was at the Pope appointed me to the Amazon Synod, which was held a year and a half ago. I was one of 2 Americans that were there. And we it was a very interesting experience because it had every bishop from the Amazon region of the 9 countries. And that was about 200 bishops were there. And the rest of us, there was a scattering from other countries, Africa, Asia, here in the United States, so, and one from Canada. But this question came up because they have a desperate priest shortage, desperate. It's so bad that in most of, particularly among the indigenous peoples who are Catholic, they only have Mass once a year. The priest comes through once a year. And so one of the proposals was to ordain married men, who most of them who would have been deacons, to ordain them priests. Another was to have women eligible for the diaconate. The bishops at the synod voted overwhelmingly for that, by 2/3. The Pope didn't want to settle it then because it's kind of a universal question. It isn't, the women in diaconate is not particular to the Amazon, it's a universal church question. So he's appointed a commission to look at that. Part of it is historically, women were deacons in some form. Whether it was exactly the same thing or not, I don't know. So I don't know what the answer is going to be on that. It's certainly a question that is actively studied. And, but the situation there is very desperate in terms of priests. And so I met a priest, Jesuit priest, and his ministry was to the, what they call the invisible people. They're people who don't want to encounter the wider society because of all that brings. So they move all the time. So his whole ministry, he lives in a canoe. That's all he has. He has his knapsack, and he goes from community group. He has to find them. You know, they were one place last year. He has to go find them, and he says about once a year he says Mass for them. But his whole life is spent doing that. So there's a desperate need there. So I voted yes on that question at that synod, partly because of this historical precedent. So we'll see what this commission has to say, and then what the Pope ultimately says on the thing. But there were women at the synod, some of them women religious, and one got up because they're doing everything there, because there's no there's no priest for a year. So this sister got up and spoke to us and said, "Do you want to know what I do in the parish?" She said, I forget what title they had for her, but she said, "I do the baptism. I do all the baptisms. I do the first communions. I do the weddings. I catechize the kids. I do the funerals. They're obviously not masses." And all of it went on and on. So I was sitting next to a Brazilian bishop. I said, if I'd gotten to know about it, I said, do you let your lay people do all this? He said, "Oh yeah, we have to. We need to." So we're not anything near that situation. So the diaconate for us is posed as a different type of question. There it's just desperately needed. So, but it'll be a universal question.
Good morning, Bishop.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming and taking the time to address our questions. I have been coming to this church since 1989, and Father Jerry was here for a long time, and then Father Jerry left, and we were blessed to have Father Ron, and Father Ron did a great job, and we wish him the best in his retirement. With that being said, we are going to have a new pastor for 3 years, Father Don, and I'm sure he's great. However, don't you think after 3 years we are going to go through the same saga that we are going now? and that's going to affect the attendance of our parishioner in the church? Thank you for...
I couldn't hear that fully. Is the mic working?
Yes. What I'm saying, like going through 3 years, we are going to have a new pastor for 3 years, then you are going to evaluate.
I don't know that's true. That is, when I asked Father Don, I asked him to make a commitment of a minimum of 3 years, and he was eager to do longer. That is, very open to doing longer. Okay. So it's not a 3 years, and he is going to, remember, he's doing the priestly part. Yeah, so.
But it could be 5 years, it could be 6
yes,
years.
Yeah, sure.
Then we're going to go through the same thing again. My question to you, isn't that going to affect the attendance of our current parishioners? And, you know, every few years we will have a new. For me, I get attached. I'm attached to Father Ron. I was attached to Father Jerry. And it takes a while to get attached to the priest of your church. And I feel like after a few years, we have to go through the same issue again. And this is a community, you know, that the church has been, we started at the gym at the Valhalla High School, yes. And we've been through a lot with this church. And to me, it hurts me, to be honest with you. I'm very heartbroken. And I drive 35 miles to come to this church. And now, probably I'm going to seek for something closer to my house. And I'm sure I'm not the only person who feels like that. So to me, that's something very personal. And I wish could have been addressed or done in a different manner.
Good. I'd say two things. One, I'd urge you to give Jane and Father Don a chance on this. The second thing is, when you say you change every 3 years, Jane, how long have you been working here? No, I know you're not undermining it. What I'm saying is, there's a continuity here. That is 27 years. See, that's why it made sense for this, or makes sense for this. So, but I understand you're not in agreement. Yes.
I have no doubt that Jane can accomplish the positions you put in and do it very well. That being said, when will you reevaluate the situation and, I don't know, possibly even get parish input on how the situation is going?
Yes. Well, I would say when we come to 3 years, just before 3 years is up, we'll check on that question to do precisely what you're suggesting. Well, if it's collapsing or something, no. But it's like in any parish, when you send a new pastor, okay? When we just did the assignments. When I do the assignments, we have a personnel board, we discuss it and all that. We put a lot of time and effort into it. But I have to say, when I do the assignments, some we think, oh, this is going to be really good. Some we think this will be good. Some we do with what Kierkegaard used to call fear and trembling. We're not so sure it's going to work. So I feel much better about this than some of the other parishes when we're sending priests there as to whether the fit is going to work. So, but yes. So in any of those situations, if it begins, if problems that are major crop up, then we try to address them earlier. But it would be the same in that. But yes, I would look for an automatic review as we approach 3 years. We're changing the models. Again, it's not the first time that Immaculate Conception. San Bernardino, over the years, has had about 20 parishes in which, in which they did this. All right. I pray that God will bless you all as a community and be here and lead you on as you've done so well for all of these years. And yes, Jane, that's right, you guys were supposed to say something. I'm going to sit down.
Okay, I'm watching the clock because we do have a mass coming up, and I want to be sure that all of you get out of here. First, I just want to acknowledge something that my choice of colors this morning did not indicate that I'm a priest wannabe. I noticed you have your cross and you're black too. It just happens to be a favorite color of mine, and all you women can relate to that. But I just want to reassure when I said that, no priest wannabe. This is something, as some of you who know me more closely know, I was intending on retiring. And so when Father Ron first talked to me about, before he announced his retirement, and I said, I'm ready to retire, we left it at that. And then a few weeks later, he announced his retirement. Bishop talked with him and said, well, what about Jane? And Father says, well, I think she's retiring, but ask her again. So he asked me, and I said no again. And then I get a call from Bishop John, and he says, you know, I know you're planning on retiring, but would you enter into a dialogue about this? And I was reminded of that this morning with the readings and the Ascension and Christ leaving, and they're saying, well, what are we going to do? And he says, you've got to put your trust in me, I'm paraphrasing. Okay, then I'm counting on you to follow me and to be that disciple and go and make more disciples. My commitment to this parish has always been, because I started out as a catechist, to help people have a relationship with the Lord. And Father Ron has driven that, into us every time we gather. And I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that the Holy Spirit is so present in this parish. And so for me, like Peter, to deny this opportunity to serve and to tell Christ, I love you, how do I do that? I can't deny him. So I said yes. And the bishop, gave a sigh and said, well, good, because I talked to God, and he said, he assured me you would be open to this. And this is a Zoom call that I'm having with both bishops. And I said, yes, I talked to God too. And he said, well, watch out for the two big guns. And it appealing to my sense of good Catholic guilt. But it just became so crystal clear, because I feel the presence of the Holy Spirit. This parish is such a collaborative parish. I would not say I would undertake this responsibility if I didn't know that I could lean into every single person in this room, everyone that's listening to this, because we have such a wonderful parish, and I see this as an opportunity to allow our priests to do what they vowed when they became a priest, to minister to the pastoral needs, the sacramental needs, the spiritual needs of our parish. And if I can help do that by taking care of this administrative and operational and finance stuff with the help of very competent experts in finance and in parish pastoral life, our parish council, and all of you who I have called over the years, and you know who you are, this would not happen. And in talking with Father Don, what sealed it for me was my question to him: how are you really going to be about letting go of being in charge of the whole parish? And he says, I am looking forward to being the priest that I always wanted to be. And if somebody has a complaint about something in the parish, I will have no problem throwing you under the bus. And I said to him, you get it. I love it. We're going to do fine. We've already talked about collaborating. He will be present at our staff meetings. He will be present at our sessions with faith formation, at all our parish events. This is what he wants to do because he's now able to do that. And I just, want to assure all of you that, I am committed to being available to you and to have this seamless. So what the priest's duties are, he will do, and hopefully the other things that some people don't even know the priests do, it'll remain that way. And that, because we have an opportunity for the lay people to be the priesthood that we were called to be. So thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I humbly am here to serve you. And my daughter commented this just the other day. She heard me get off a phone conversation, and she said, "Mom, do you know you tell everybody you love them?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And what that means is I have a personal relationship with Christ, and he is in my heart. And when I say I love you and bless you, I am being just that messenger of Christ. It's his love that I'm conveying to you, and I hope that comes across that way. So with that, I love you all.